Are you staring down Chapter 1 of Strategic Management and feeling a little stuck? Don't worry, you are definitely not alone. In the next few minutes, we're going to break down the most important concepts. You know, the ones that show up on the exam again and again, so you can walk into that hall feeling totally prepared and ready to go.
Okay, so before we start drowning in textbook definitions, let's work smart. Let's try to get inside the heads of the examiners. What are their favorite topics to ask about? Because if we know that, right, we can focus our study time where it's actually going to make a difference.
And guess what? We've already done that legwork for you. We went through past exam papers, and a clear pattern emerged. These 5 areas right here, they're the superstars. You can pretty much count on seeing questions about definitions, those key characteristics. And, you gotta believe, the 3 levels of strategy. This is where we need to aim our focus.
So here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll nail down the core concept of strategy. Then, we'll break down those 3 levels. After that, we'll walk through the planning process, and we'll finish everything off with a super handy cheat sheet to help it all stick. You ready? Let's do this.
All right, first things first. We use the word strategy all the time in daily life, but for your exam, what does it really mean? Getting this definition right is the absolute bedrock for everything else we're going to cover.
Here it is, the classic definition you should probably have memorized. But don't just memorize it, understand it. It's not just any plan. Look at those key words. It's unified, which means everyone in the company is pulling in the same direction. It's comprehensive, meaning it covers all the important angles. And it's integrated, so all the different parts work together smoothly. That, right there, is the difference between a real strategy and just, well, a wish list.
Now, you really want to pay attention here because this slide clears up one of the most common mistakes students make. People confuse objectives and strategy all the time, but it's simple, really. Think of it like this. Objectives are where you want to go. That's the destination, the end result. Strategy is how you're gonna get there. It's the roadmap, the means to the end. Get this right, and you're picking up easy marks.
So, what are the ingredients that make a plan a strategy? Well, it's these characteristics. A proper strategy isn't about what you're doing next Tuesday. It's looking years down the line. It's not just a document that sits on a shelf. It's about action. And most importantly, it's about winning, creating an edge over your competitors, adapting to a changing world, and making sure everyone who has a stake in the company, from the owners to the customers, gets what they need. Okay, so now we know what strategy is. The next logical question is, how is it organized inside a real company? And that brings us to the 3 levels of strategy. Seriously, if there's one thing you can almost bet on seeing on your exam, it's this. Understanding this framework is absolutely key.
So at the very top, the highest level, you have corporate strategy. This is the big picture view, the questions the board of directors and the CEO are asking. And the main question is a huge one. What business or what collection of businesses should we actually be in? This is where they make decisions like acquiring another company or expanding into a totally new market.
Okay, coming down one level, we get to business strategy. Now, if corporate strategy decides which game the company is going to play, business strategy is all about how to win that particular game. So for each division or business unit, the question becomes, okay, in this specific market, how are we going to beat our rivals? This is where you'll find plans about being the cheapest option or maybe the highest quality, most innovative brand.
And finally, we get down to the ground floor with functional strategy. This is where the rubber really meets the road. It's about how each department, marketing, finance, operations, HR, supports the business level strategy. You know, how does the marketing team's plan help us be the low-cost leader? What kind of people does HR need to hire? These day-to-day plans are what make the bigger strategy actually happen.
This example makes it all so clear, doesn't it? The Chapter Group's corporate strategy was to diversify into all these different areas: food, electronics, cars, you name it. But the business strategy for their YY Noodles division, how they compete against other noodle brands, is going to be worlds apart from the strategy for their hotel division. Each of these strategic business units, or SBUs, needs its own unique game plan to win in its own market.
So, we've got these different levels of strategy, but where do they even come from? They don't just magically appear. They are the product of a very deliberate process called strategic planning. So let's check out the steps involved. And this quote really hits the nail on the head. The 2 words to focus on here are formalized and long range. Strategic planning is the total opposite of just winging it or constantly putting out fires. It's about systematically looking ahead and intentionally charting a course for the future.
You absolutely need to know these steps for the exam.
It's a really logical flow. First, in step 1, you figure out where you're going, your vision and mission. Then, you get to the famous SWOT analysis. That's really steps 2, 3, and 4. You look outside the company for opportunities and threats, and you look inside for your strengths and weaknesses. Now, step 5 is where the real magic happens. You try to match your strengths with the opportunities out there. And once you figure that out, you put it all together in the final strategic plan in step 6.
Okay, we have covered a ton of ground. So let's pull it all together into one final, simple cheat sheet. You might want to get your phone out to take a picture of this slide, because this is the perfect thing to look at a few minutes before you walk into that exam.
And here it is. For the definition of strategy, just remember the letters UCI: Unified, Comprehensive, and Integrated. For the levels, think CBF. Corporate asks, what business? Business asks, how to compete. And functional asks, how to deliver. And strategic planning? That's the formal process that uses SWOT analysis. Honestly, if you can lock this slide into your brain, you have a solid grip on the core of Chapter 1. So I'll leave you with one last thing to think about, and it's a huge debate in the world of strategy. Which of these levels is actually the most important? Is it the huge top-level corporate decisions about which markets to be in, or is it the brilliant on-the-ground execution at the business and functional levels that truly determines success? It's something to ponder as you continue studying. You've got this. Best of luck.